My earliest memory is riding in my grandfather's boat, arm over the side, hand in the spray. I've spent much of the rest of my life chasing this feeling. All of that has led to this, the Wooden Boat Experience. Welcome everybody to the Wooden Boat Experience. The intro is being done here from the Lyman, which you can see is in the water. This is not a green screen behind me. This is Chippewa Bay, and it is summertime, and I am happy because I'm sitting in my boat. The thing I'm not happy about is I'm doing this Friday afternoon when you should have already watched my video for this week. And obviously, I'm still filming, you're not watching it. So I'll be editing tonight and then hopefully it will upload. This is probably gonna be a long video, so it's gonna take a while to upload, probably overnight. But hopefully tomorrow, Saturday, you'll get to see this. So what is the subject of our video today? It's ship shape. Is your boat ship shape? Well, I'm feeling pretty good about this boat being ship shape. But my standards might be different than yours. So how do you determine whether your boat is or isn't ship shape? Well, you have to take a few things into account, and there's always compromises. So you have to worry about how much money do you have to put into your boat? So what's your budget? How much time do you have to put into your boat? What's your budget for that? Now for me, I have more time than I have money, so I can throw my labor at it. So that helps even those two things out. But also, what are you willing to live with? Is that scratch on that piece of mahogany right there going to bother you all summer? Does it need to be fixed? Or can you live with it one more year? With the different things that are wrong with this, I can live with for a year. Because I want to get out in the water. I'm 57 years old. How many more good summers do I have left? 20? I don't know. So, and not to be a downer or anything, but you have to think about these things. But also you have to think about safety. How safe is your boat, especially if it's a wooden boat? It's not just you in the boat, it's your family, it's your friends, or if you're a charter captain, it's the people you take out. Those people that go out on your boat expect to come back in your boat, not swim in from shore, not be towed, not be in a dangerous situation. So that has to come into play as well. So we are here. I am warm. I'm actually sweating a little bit. I am going to head back to the house, start working on editing, get this video out to you guys. I'm just glad you joined me on the Wooden Boat Experience, that this week actually is a wooden boat experience. I headed out to look at a couple of boats with T. Menkel. T is a true river rat and boat captain. He has spent his whole life on the St. Lawrence and knows Chippewa Bay as well as anyone. He has a St. Lawrence skiff that needs a little work, as well as a Peapod that is missing a rudder. I'm going to see if I can help. It is a fiberglass hull, but it's the wood that needs the attention. The Peapod is a beautiful little boat, and T told me all about it, its history, and the file went missing. It was great being on the water, but I had to get back to the Lyman. The day before, Thursday, I had started what I thought was a simple scrape and paint of the bottom, and quickly found out I had a lot more work to do than I thought. Well, wasn't that fun? That's the starboard side done. Now to move on to the port side. I think I told you guys a while ago that I like working on boats as much as I like driving them. When I was talking about that, I wasn't talking about this part. This is about the worst job I've done in a while. And it wasn't something I was planning on doing, but when I started messing around with that bottom and looking at that paint and not knowing if it was going to be next year that I decide to redo this boat or the year after, I spent the equivalent of a day to scrape and sand this and check out where anybody had caulked it previously and needed to be replaced, and got that already. Now all it needs is to be caulked in those places, which hopefully is something you normally don't have to do with a Lyman, but there's a few spots that have already been done, so I've got to redo those until I do it, fix it permanently. So I'll do that today. It's nice and dry, so I don't want to wash it yet. Let that put some, I'll probably use 5200 just because I know that I'm going to be taking it apart eventually and it won't matter. But I'll use quick drying 5200, caulk those spots, let it cure overnight. Tomorrow we've got the water tank in here. You can see over there that water tank, so that we can wash the bottom, and I'll probably wash the bilge out afterwards when I get all done with that quickly. So I'll do that tomorrow. Throw a coat of paint on it, probably Sunday afternoon. And then all I got left to do is a little bit more varnishing and a little work in the inside. And Tuesday, it's supposed to go in the water. I am going to try a little experiment. There's a groove here. It's probably hard to see from your angle. But between the garboard and the stem, or gripe, I'm not sure what we have here, there was some caulk in here. And I peeled it out pretty easily, and we all know how 5200 will do that after a couple years. I didn't put it in there. I didn't know, I didn't notice this until I started to scrape and sand this. So I noticed that Snake Mountain Boat Works was using some Thixoflex to do some similar things. So I know that I'm going to work on this boat in the next couple of years and really have to deal with a whole bunch of stuff. And I know there's issues down in here that are going to eventually have to be dealt with. So I'm going to try this as an experiment and try this Thixoflex into this spot right here. And you can't tell what things are going to do if you don't try them. You got to see on something. I did use this pointed pick to make some holes. You can see in the little thing here, little rim around here. So this will drain out, any extra varnish will drain out. You can see I took 3 quarts of varnish out of here. Now I don't mind those holes in here now because this one's opened and going to be used. Whereas these 3 new quarts that are set aside, I did not poke the holes in there yet because I don't want any chance of air to get in there and harden that up. And you'd say, you might say that, well, now I've got 3 cans plus the original can, so I'm making extra garbage here. But what I'm going to use this for when it gets emptied out, and then I'll just let it dry and it'll have a nice varnished inside so it won't rust inside, is for storage of parts. So screws or nails or whatever, it makes a great storage container. So they aren't going to waste. They won't get thrown in the landfill. They're going to get used. And I'm going to take this last quart down to the Lyman and put it in the quart can that I had from before. Or maybe I'll just work out of this one. I'm not sure which. Sometimes a big can's kind of a pain to work out of. Well, I told you guys that I was experimenting with the Thixoflex. And I went all the way from this other side on the port side of the bow, all the way down that side. And I didn't put Thixoflex everywhere, just in some spots where it needed it. And I got all the way back down after wrapping around to right here and ran out. And I actually had ordered some the other day, but it's back ordered and it'll be a few more days before I get it. And I had one little spot here that was a very thin strip that I wanted to put some in. So instead I put some 4200. Keeping in mind that this is only a temporary situation, but if you're using 4200 or 5200, what I did is I squirted it in here and then I ran my finger down here to smooth it off. But if you leave this feathered edge like right here on here, it's going to peel off. It doesn't hold up well. The stuff inside will be fine, but the stuff outside just doesn't stay. So if you paint over that, eventually that's going to peel off. So the best thing to do is to scrape it right away. Don't leave those feather edges on there. And this is the only tool I seem to have here that wants to work well for this, but there is no advantage to having that little feather edge there. So I'll get the bulk of it off with this stick, and then I'll come down through with a piece of paper towel and just wipe it right in like that. Like even that one right there, it's just not gonna stay. Maybe it might stay half the season. It might fall off next year. It's just another headache. You just might as well get rid of it while you can, while it's in liquid form. All right, I'll finish this up. You don't need to watch every bit of it. So I had 2 quarts of paint. One was an old can and one was a new can. They're the same company, but they're not exactly the same paint, although they're roughly the same color. So we're gonna do a little experiment this year. Each year there's a few dings and bruises. This is from the fender rubbing against the side of the boat. So I just go through, touch these spots up, just to keep it looking decent until we actually restore the boat. Stuff like this you can notice up close. From afar, if it's white, it looks fine. Okay, I've got 2 plastic little jars here that have paint thinner in them. In this case, mineral spirits and paint thinner. This one's mineral spirits, I believe. They're pretty much the same thing. But I'm going to show you the best way that I can clean this paintbrush here. Now this was the brush I just used for varnishing, and this varnish is an oil-based. So it's not as easy as a water-based, where if this was water-based, I would put the brush this way with a faucet, running water in here, because the biggest problem with the brush is when every time that you push the brush like this, you push paint or varnish or whatever up into the ferrule, the metal part. And that's why your brush gets harder and harder and harder in here. So ideally the way is to wash it out this way. I don't have a setup here to pour the paint thinner in this way, so I'm doing this, which is essentially pushing the varnish further and further in. But what I'm hoping is I'm pushing enough of this mineral spirits or paint thinner up into the ferrule to wash that varnish out. But the tool that I really wanted to show you here, I'm going to squeeze some of this out of here. Now this one is the one I cleaned with first yesterday. This is second, and that's important that you do as well, because there's going to be a lot of varnish in this first one. This tool, which comes from Worcester, I think, this thing works really well. It's got these needles on the side. You run those through the brush. I like to turn it all 4 ways, and especially up near the ferrule right here. Help get that stuff out of there. Put it back in here again, work it back and forth. Let it drain out. Take a look. Is the stuff that's coming out of there, does it look like varnish or does it look like paint thinner? Now, this is stuff that I let sit, and this has got a little bit of a color to it from the paint. But paint thinner, you can let it sit, it'll settle, all the paint and varnish and crap will go to the bottom. You carefully pour the top off, save that paint thinner, get rid of the gunk that's at the bottom. And other than evaporation and what little is in with the gunk, your paint thinner is going to last you a long time, because you're not dumping it out, or, you know, none of that's good, because where are you going to dump it out? You can't dump it in the sink. Okay, one more time with this cleaner. And this is something you can get probably right on Amazon, although I think you just call it a paintbrush cleaner. But definitely a paint store is going to have it. Now these are pretty widely spaced, so I'm going to move this around, hit it in there a couple different ways. This wire brush on here is great for getting any little dried bits off the next day that are on the outside. And sometimes you can actually run this through here too, but it doesn't, this brush is pretty thick and it doesn't seem to make its way through there at all. So now I'm going to get as much of this out of here as I can. Then I'm going to switch. This is the stuff that wasn't used yesterday, and you can see it's fairly clear. I hope you can see. until I was just about done cleaning. It's your last thing. And normally in my shop, I would have 3 of these set up. Really dirty, medium dirty, and fairly clean. I didn't have enough paint thinner here to do that. It's running pretty clear. Run this through a few times. Now I did this yesterday, and when I got here today, it's hard to tell with the varnish because you can't really see it that well. It's a little yellowy, but that's it. But I got here today and the brush was really good. Other than being a little damp from the oily mineral spirits. The mineral spirits are a little bit more oily than paint thinner, I find. The brush seemed really clean, and it looks pretty clean there. Squeeze it, see what's coming out. I'm not seeing any yellowy varnish. Always go a couple more times just to be sure. This is not an expensive brush, but I don't want to be constantly throwing brushes away and putting them in the landfill. Bottom paint, another story. I use the cheapest, crappiest brush and a roller for that and do throw them away, but varnish brushes seem to work better the more you use them, so. And this is called an Amber Fong, I think. I'll put the info to this down in the description for you guys. But I like this brush a lot, and it's really cheap. I think it's less than $4 for this brush. It's a bristle brush. And now this has got a little tiny bit more color to it than it had yesterday. That's looking pretty good. I'm gonna leave just a little bit in there. I'm gonna set that like that. And hopefully tomorrow that'll be just fine. Well, the Chevy V8, which is, I believe, a 327, is just about ready to take the Lyman out in the river tomorrow. I'm hoping by lunchtime we will be in. The batteries are temporarily hooked in place. I've got to bring a couple of connectors here to finish those up. Need a quart of oil. Already replaced the impeller last year, and everything else looks good. A little bit more vacuuming to do in the back, and then we'll get the hydraulic trailer in here, and this will be out of here. So I'm wearing my Danger Marine shirt today, and I hope Stu is feeling better. And I did watch his live episode. I don't know how many of you did, but he got hurt, and in usual Stu fashion, I'm sure he will be right back out in the boat soon. So good luck, Stu, and good luck to the Lyman tomorrow when it goes back into the St. Lawrence. Tuesday was a no-go, so I did more work. Let's get the engine cover back in place. This one piece of floor is always an issue. Oh, and before I put the floors in, I did this. while it runs. Well, now the inside was ready to go. I even washed the windows. Well, is it ship shape? Well, I can tell you, it's as good a shape as this ship is getting in this year. It's what my budget and my time and my patience, my willingness to wait to get it in the water would allow. Not to mention safety, because it is a wooden boat. So you got to go through each year, if you have an old wooden boat, and make sure that you don't have issues that's going to put that boat on the bottom. And just this morning, an old wooden boat that I know of was being dealt with because it sunk. I don't think it sunk in a lot of water, but it sunk enough that the motor was underwater, and that was due to an old seacock that wasn't functioning properly, and it put that boat on the bottom. So once a year, you've got to check things out and do your best to lower the possibility of it sinking. There's always the chance that something could go wrong that you don't notice. All right, well, tomorrow, finally, quite a bit later than I thought, it's going in the water.